Hey, this is Coach Casey from Potosi Football, and you're watching Knuckleball Prime Time.
Hi, and welcome to the Knuckleball Prime Time. Live from the barn office, you got the Mox here, and I'm joined with Coach Casey, the Potosi Trojans, via Zoom right now. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about you guys?
Doing really good. Central at Potosi. Parkland Sports Live will be on the call with Greg Allen, Mike Reeves, and Coach Stolzer. Catch the live broadcast on the Parkland Podcast Facebook page and the Barn YouTube channel, and the pregame with the Knuckleball Prime Time. Big week for you this week.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those that we kind of feel like we're getting back into the groove of things and just gonna kind of try to keep things rolling and keep improving each week. But every game's a big game for us right now. So, but this one's a little different twist.
It's got a little bit of a storyline, which us media guys, we love those kinds of things because it gives us something to talk about. But
Right.
obviously, you were with Central for how many years were you with Central?
Last 8 years.
Okay, so you know the program very well. You know Coach Schweiss and Coach Jones very well, and that staff and the players too. So, is there an emotional attachment to this week, or do you just try to treat it like the next opponent?
I mean, I think you try to treat it like the next opponent as much as you possibly can. Obviously, I'm still really good friends with all the coaching staff over there, and I know all the kids over there, really good kids. And, so it's one of those things that I think I know I'm in the mindset, and I know they're in the mindset of, yeah, we can be buddies and everything. But whenever the game starts, it's, you go to battle, and they don't want to lose a football game. We don't want to lose a football game. So I think it's just it's the challenge of just playing football. I think that's where the fun part of it comes in. And that's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, and I've been a coach before, and I've coached against some of my really good friends, and that doesn't mean that competitive spirit, that I put it aside. In fact, sometimes it's there even more so. I can be your friend and still want to kick your ass,
Right.
and that's part of having that competitive spirit. So I would say, I can understand that. I can understand that feeling, but I think a lot of people, both communities, are pretty excited because there is that additional extra storyline.
Yeah, it does add a little different twist than what I guess we're kind of used to. I mean, like you said, I know all their coaches, I know all their players. I just have a good understanding of how they like to do things. Now, I also know them well enough too to where they're not going to go in with just the same things that we've done over the past however many years too. When we were all together, they're going to add some twists to things, and vice versa. I mean, we do a lot of the things that we did when I was at Central the last 8 years, a lot of good things out of that. So anywhere you go, you try to take the really, really good things out of it and use, and then you try to add your own little mixes that are extra to it, obviously. And I mean, we had a pretty good run over there. So, I mean, a lot of things that were used over there, are implemented here as well, just because of the success factor that it had. So, I mean, and obviously we have to adjust some of the things that we do this week. And, so it's going to be an interesting way to see how both teams kind of counteract each other on that part of it, because I think both teams do know each other really well. But I think it'll be fun. It'll be good.
Let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about the Trojans.
Mm-hmm.
At the midway point of the season, you're sitting at 2-3. You had a dominant win last week, a really close loss, which I actually talked to some of the St. Gen coaches pre and post game when we covered them last week, and they said some really nice things about the Potosi Trojans. What do you know about your team so far?
Well, I think that we are still. I don't think we've played our best football yet. I think we're still in that process of kind of figuring things out, if you will. I mean, I think that we've got a good idea now. I think we're well into it enough, but we've talked about it as a team and talked about it as a coaching staff, getting kind of a late start, that kind of hurts in football because a lot of teams are starting to work on their stuff in April and May, June, July. Well, I was still working at Central until the end of May. We didn't get started over here until June. Then you got to start meeting kids and kids deciding if they want to play for a new coach and this and that. You don't have very good numbers in the weight room because kids aren't sure yet. And I would say, honestly, about the end of July, we felt like we were really, okay, now we can get started because we've got all the guys here that we need, all the guys that are committed and ready to go. They're all here. They're showing up. They're kind of figuring out some things. Then you start kind of implementing new things and new ways of doing things and styles. So it takes the kids a little bit to adapt to that. They're used to doing it a certain way. Well, it takes a minute for them to kind of fall into a pattern that they're not used to. So I think now we're starting to finally get that common area that we kind of understand. They know me a little bit better now. I know them a lot better now. And I think the comfort level is starting to get just way better than what it was early on. And we knew we'd have some bumps and bruises early on. For one, we're still growing and figuring things out. But two, those first 4 games, I think the combined record of all those teams it's really good. I know that it was like 13-2 at one point in time. I mean, it was good quality competition. So, we knew it wasn't going to be easy anyway. All good teams, and and I expect nothing different this week. Central got off to a really hot start, and they've definitely proved that people that might have been doubting them early, they can play. They know what they're doing, and with that coaching staff over there, they're going to be prepared and ready for anything you bring at them. So it's been a good learning experience for us, just for the simple fact of, we're playing quality opponents, and I think you have to play some quality opponents early on to see exactly where you're at. And I think it helps get you playoff or week 10, 11, ready. So it's been good for us.
Yeah, and I'm a bigger believer in that. I know, obviously, this is your first year there, so the scheduling you probably weren't a part of, I imagine. Mm-hmm. But I like to know where we sit early on, and I think there's a lot to be said about scheduling tough opponents early into your. Now, you might not want them week 1. You want to kind of slowly get into that, and there's some argument there one way or the other. But yeah, I like knowing what I have and who I can depend on. And I always like to talk about what I think is maybe the unsung hero of the leadership. Who are some of the leaders on your team?
Our seniors have been really, really good. Actually, our juniors too. They've really taken a grasp to that, and and we've got different types of leaders. We've got some that are vocal leaders. We've got some that are lead by example on the field. Like Noah Walton, for example. He's not a big rah guy. He's not a big, guy like that, but he obviously on the field, he does a really good job, and he's a leader by example that way. Then you got guys also, though, that like Jude Litton and Clayton Richards. Those guys are vocal leaders. They're emotional type guys, so and that's the thing about it. We have probably 8-9 guys that at some point in time they lead in their own kind of way, and I think that's just kind of how football has gone to. In this day and age, it's different than what it was 20, 25 years ago. You had those guys up front that were just really gung-ho and but I think you have all kinds of different leaders now. And I think guys, you have to coach guys differently, honestly, too. I mean, certain guys you can get on and you can rip them and they play better. And certain guys you get on and you can rip them and they shut it down and they're done with you, So you just got to learn your guys and understand, how you can coach them, what's the best way to coach them. And as far as being leaders, that's how I kind of started learning who my guys were, which guys were stepping up and trying to get after people and calling people out, and which guys were the guys that just kind of want to get out on the field and just let their pads speak. So, and I'm still learning, and for the most part, but I do have a much better feel for it now.
Yeah, I feel like leadership reveals itself when things aren't going great, and that's where you can really kind of learn a lot about your guys. It's easy to do football math, and especially when you're a player, when you're a teenager. Well, we played St. John down to the very last point, and then St. John puts it on Central pretty good last week, and it was a pretty dominant performance. How do we keep the kids and your players from not going too far in advance in their minds anyway? You want to have confidence, obviously, but you don't want to start putting a W on the board when it hasn't been earned yet.
No, and we've talked a lot about that. Guys like to try to get a certain narrative in their mind before the game starts, and it just doesn't work like that. And I told them we're not in a position to even think like that at all. I mean, right now, going even into last week, they see Fredericktown's record, but I'm like, guys, we're only 1-3. So, I mean, you can't really say that that's anything. And then on any given night, obviously, if you have two teams that are good football teams and one gets off to a fast start, or one has a big momentum swing, or whatever, only teams that are just like the dominant teams can go out and still dominate when they're not doing things right and playing well. And teams that aren't at that level, they just cannot afford to give up anything. And that's what we're trying to get into the heads right now, is that, every game that we play from this point on is our most important game. And everything that you do is going to depend on who you're playing in week 10 and where, if you're having to travel or if you're going to be at home, or, and just trying to get that mindset of week by week and just taking care of business, trying to get off to as good a start as we can get in games and not have to dig from behind, and just trying to get that whole mindset of, okay, let's go in and just grind and do what we got to do here and start from the very beginning. So that's been a little bit of a shift as well for me, but we're getting there.
Central can be a bit of a two-headed monster in that they can get big and physical with, 23, and I think he's coming back this week. I've heard that he's healthy to come back this week. So they can come right at you and run, and he runs hard, and, the line does a good job. But then they also have playmakers, and number 11 being one of them. So they can spread they can come straight at you vertically, but they can also spread the field out horizontally. You're basically having to prepare for two different styles, completely different styles, because they've shown both on film. There were times we covered the Jefferson game, I think week 2, and they showed both styles and had success with both. I'm sure that makes it difficult to prepare for. And how do you prepare for that? Is it staying pretty basey in your coverages and in your defenses, and then making adjustments, and not trying to give away too much of your game plan? Right. But I guess just in general, how do you prepare for two different styles like that?
Well, and that's the thing about it. We know August is he's a really good young football player, and I know that because I've coached him. I've been around him. He's a hard worker. He runs hard. He's just a good football player. He has a nose for the ball. He runs really hard. And we know that we're going to have to bring multiple hats to the ball to be able to take care of him. We're going to be fitting things properly and doing all that stuff. But like you said, on the other side of that, Karras is one of the most athletic kids in the conference as well. He's fast, he's quick, he can jump, he's pretty heady with the ball. In defensively, if you try to throw at him, he can make a play on you and make you pay for it. So yeah, you're right. I think you have to go into your base stuff and basically just the basic fundamentals of day one, and understand where guys are at on the field. What do they like to do? How can they hurt you? And I think you got to mix it up a little bit on them. Coach Schweiss is probably the best I've ever seen at like spark plays and like creating situations where he gets your eyes going one way and something's happening over here or something's going over, and he is really, really, really good at that. And that's one of those things that we've been working for stuff like that all week, and it's been in the back of our guys' minds entire week to know who's eligible, know who's ineligible as far as receivers and doing all those little things. But yeah, he is really good at it. And it's kind of a preparation week for everything, kind of almost back to the beginning of the season when you're working on everything and just trying to make yourself better. That's what we want to do, making sure guys know where their eyes are relating. What receiver is your eyes going to? He does this. What are your eyes go to now? And then offensively, same thing, just guys understanding who you block. Okay, well, what if this guy moves over? What if he's here? Now, what does that change? How do we just making sure we're able to react to things and basically do the basic stuff and be able to do it fast, because if we're out there thinking, we're probably not going to play as fast. And, just we want to be able to play fast and play without as few hiccups as possible.
When you talk about basics, I think about tackling. Yes. And again, two styles of it's going to take more than one to get 23 down. Yeah. And it's going to take great technique to get 11 down, especially in the open field. So to me, it does kind of go back to that, is that we need to rally to the ball always. We need to have good eye discipline where our eyes are, especially when you're talking about, having an eligible lineman that looks the part or whatever, and some of that trickery that can be thrown in there and those little things that Schweiss likes to do. And especially, I would say, knowing the system so well, knowing him so well, I imagine he might be scripting something up that maybe you aren't aware of or haven't
For
seen
sure.
before.
For
So,
sure.
and I think there's some gamesmanship in that a little
Yeah.
bit. But yeah, I agree. I think especially on the defense when covering their offense, it has to come back down to basics and just having good eye discipline, good read discipline, and then making the tackle when you need to.
Yep, and I think that's one of the areas where we've been getting better at. We still got a ways to go, but this will be a good test for us to see if we can do it or not.
Talk about your experience, your guys that aren't too, their eyes don't get too big on Friday nights. You have some people that have been, especially some of your skill guys that have been here before. They've played Central before, and they've played in big games before. So talk about your experience with your players.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things we've talked about too. Just last night in the locker room we talked about, okay, who in this room has ever beaten Central on a Friday night in a football game? And obviously zero hands have raised up. So it's one of those things that right there is already something for you to go out and play for and try to accomplish something that seniors, this is possibly your last chance to ever play. You never know. And so we talked a lot about that, where you guys, yeah, you've played them many times, but it's not ended up the way that you've wanted it to end up. This is what we've got to get going here. We've got to try to figure this thing out, and we've got to play at a level where we can maybe make that happen for you. But it's one of the things too that some guys have played in bigger games, some guys haven't, and these are the types of games you have to win to be able to get to those games that later on down the line that you do want to be playing in.
I know we take it one game at a time, right?
Yep, for sure.
This is a pretty big game.
Yeah.
Psychologically, do you have those conversations with your kids because we want to be fired up for the game, we want to have good motivation for the game, but we also want to be able to, kind of regulate ourselves and our emotions where the emotions don't get the best of us and we make a dumb penalty or, we make a penalty that puts us back a little bit that's going to really hurt a drive or end up, with losing, whatever it might be. So how do you keep that motivation, but then also make sure that your players are playing smart, level-headed football?
Yeah, it's a fine line. I mean, it's one of those things you definitely want them to have that emotion, but you want them to be locked in enough too to where they're doing their job and they understand their fits. And like we talk about all the time, it's an 11-piece puzzle. But if one person up front doesn't do their job or they're trying to do something more than their job, and it opens up a gap bigger than what it needs to be, now the linebacker can't fit. Now all of a sudden the safety's having to readjust, and just trusting the process and trusting that your buddy's going to do his job. I don't have to do more than my job. I just have to do my job. And I think that, we're like I said, we're getting better at that. Guys have not 100% fully trusted that in every game that we've played this year. But we're getting better at it. And that's all I can really ask for is week by week, just getting a little better each week. And, just making sure that, and here's another thing that you add into it, that it's homecoming. So that's always extra things going on throughout the week and distractions and this and that. And, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. It's been a blast even already, but as a coach, you sit there and you worry about those type of things. Are we going to be locked in as much as we need to be locked in? But so far they've been pretty good at, and I don't, I think that they want to compete. I think that they know that they have a chance to go out and have a chance to compete in the game, and I think they're excited about that.
We've covered Central quite a bit this season so far, and the people that have had success with them or even, played in close games with them, the thing that stood out to me is it was teams that would match their physicality. Mm-hmm. Because I specifically think about their defense, and that's a Coach Jones defense, and you know what that means. Right. You better be bringing it, and it's to do your job, right? And I think it's maybe it was even on your championship shirts or something. Mm-hmm. Do your job. So they're going to be disciplined, but then also with that, the physical aspect of it. And I would say Jefferson did a good job of matching their physicality too. Even, Central ended up winning that game. But, from personal experience and seeing that, how much do you preach that physicality matching or even, going excessive to match and overcome their physicality with your own?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to make sure that's one of the things we try not to get bullied up front. And that's one of the biggest talks every single day that we talk about it. We have to control the line of scrimmage. That's where the game's going to be won and lost. And if we're getting pushed back, if we're getting beat up there, it's going to be a long night for us. But if we can match or at least, enforce that we can be the more dominant one up there, we know that we have a chance to play with anyone that's on our schedule. And that's where it's got to start at, and that's where it's got to begin. And I think that we have gotten better from week 1 to now as far as doing that. So we're definitely growing in that area. But we know this Friday that they're gonna be excited to come over here to our place, and they're gonna be excited to get after us, and we better be ready to match what they're bringing.
You mentioned Noah Walton. Talk about him and how important he is to this team.
Oh, he's huge. I mean, he's a 4-year starter. He's just a really, really good football player. We've got him playing probably a lot more defense than what he's played in the past as well, and he's handled it really, really well. He's had to carry the ball a lot, but the good thing about it is we've also got a couple other guys that can carry it. With Carter Pyatt, he shares a lot of the load with him too, so we don't feel bad at all handing the ball to Carter, because he's a pretty good running back as well. And that's a time where we can give Noah a little bit of a break. We don't got to give it to him 25 times or 30 times. Those two can split the load, and then we've got a couple others that we can even sprinkle in the mix as well. We feel like we balance it out well enough with the run and pass as well. We feel like we got a few weapons on the outside as well. So we're just really trying to monitor Noah's workload early in the season, especially. But Noah's been awesome. He's been great. He's done everything we ever asked. He's super coachable. He's definitely, I consider him to be one of the top running backs in Southeast Missouri. I just, and I might be a little biased, but he's pretty good. He's pretty stinking good.
Talk a little bit about the Potosi community and how they've embraced you. Obviously, you're very familiar with that community and how it can be a tight-knit community, and they love their Potosi Trojans. Coming back, I know it was the announcement was received very well. And have you, what was that experience like coming back into the community that can be so tight-knit?
Yeah, it was really neat, because at first I didn't know what to expect. But it was kind of overwhelming. It was really neat. I had a lot of people reaching out to me, especially a lot of former players and things like that were really excited to hear that I was coming back. And it was it really confirmed, okay, yeah, you're doing the right thing here. But it was really neat, and it's been great, from that point on. It's been really cool, and like I said, people don't understand, like over at Potosi, like homecoming week over here is different than anything I've ever seen anywhere else. And it was like that whenever I was here before too. So I wasn't really caught off guard, but it's just, it's crazy the amount of things they do for these guys. These guys are so spoiled during a homecoming week. I mean, there's ice cream sundae bars after practice on Monday and Tuesday. Then there's a fish fry after practice on Wednesday. Then there's a catered meal coming in after practice on Thursday. And these guys are getting presents in their lockers from their locker buddies and this and that and all these treats and stuff throughout the day. And it is really a homecoming experience is a pretty neat thing over here. They take a lot of pride in it. They do it good.
And I asked that to ask you this: what would a homecoming win against Central mean this Friday for the community, for the team, and for the program?
I think it'd be big. I mean, you have a team that's, pretty close in proximity. It's been a rival kind of over the years in multiple sports. I think that anytime you play a homecoming game, that's always a big thing for the community, because you're going to have a lot more people at the game. It's going to, I would expect it's going to be a packed house. Got a lot of festivities going on around the game and everything else. So I think it would be big, and like I said, none of these kids have ever beat Central on a Friday night anyway. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that are compiled into one that it would make it a pretty special night. But, at the same time, we know that we've got to go out and we've got to handle business, or, it is what it is.
Coach KC with the Potosi Trojans. This is the Knuckleball Prime Time via the Barn. Central Rebels at Potosi. Parkland Sports Live will be on the call. Greg Allen, Mike Reeves, and Coach Stolzer. Catch the live broadcast on the Parkland Podcast Facebook page and the Barn YouTube channel, and pregame with the Knuckleball Prime Time. Thanks so much, Coach, and good luck to you on Friday.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Anytime.